feel like I haven't been able to finish anything lately. I just start all these books and then quickly abandon them, so I can't do any wrap-ups. I can just do what I'm reading right now. Let's check it out. Hi there, I'm Michelle with the Goffstown Public Library, where I'm an adult services librarian. Welcome to our library. I'm so happy to have you. Even though it feels like summer just started, I am so sad to say that this is the last week of our Imagine Your Story Summer Experience, a yearly summer-long program that celebrates reading, learning, and play in all ages. That means this is the last week for you to log all the reading and video watching you did this summer at goffstownlibrary.com/summer 2020. I'll be revealing another secret code in today's video, so you'll get another chance to earn tickets to our grand prize raffles. And remember, you don't need a Goffstown Library card to participate in the adult program. This week on Book Talk with Michelle, I'm doing something a little different. I haven't scripted this, I'm talking off the cuff to give you my original unfiltered thoughts on the books that I am currently reading. Even though reading is one of my favorite things to do, over the last couple months, I haven't really been reading. After the pandemic shutdown, when I read a lot, I was so excited for summer where I could get out and do something that wasn't inside. And yeah, I love to read outside, but I don't know, it was nice to leave my mind behind for a little while. But going on 3 months without reading anything, I was starting to go crazy. So I've started a bunch of books that I want to talk about today, talk about what's keeping me from finishing them, and if I'm liking or not liking the story. So the first book I want to share is The Bear by Andrew Krivak. I actually did just finish this one. I was listening to it on audiobook for the book club that I host here at the Goffstown Public Library, but I feel like I haven't really read it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I read it and I enjoyed it, but I feel like I need to do it again to really let it sink in. So The Bear has been described as a post-apocalyptic utopia, which they don't seem to go together. The premise of the book is that all the humans are gone. There's only two left, a father and a daughter. They're never named, but you learn to love them a lot. The writer does a great job humanizing them and getting you to care from the sparsest descriptions. I felt like this was a great book to read during this time because one of the main themes is overcoming loneliness and how you're never alone when you're in nature. And one of the reasons I'm not reading is because I've been in nature so much, so it was a nice fit. The natural environment really did play an important part in this book. Settings were talked about very tenderly. When I was reading it, I was imagining the settings in a New Hampshire kind of forest and access to a very New Hampshire ocean. And I thought that was just because, you know, I live here and I'm coloring the book with my own biases. But after I read it, when I was at book club talking about it, someone mentioned that the setting of the book is the mountain that stands alone. That's described in Krivak's writing. And the Abenaki word for the mountain that stands alone is Monadnock, which is a popular mountain here in New Hampshire, Mount Monadnock. So it really drove home that connection. Also at the club, we talked a lot about how the book was hopeful, that even though these were the last humans and there was going to be no humanity afterwards, it was still hopeful. I finished reading it and I was glad. I wasn't sad or grieving, I was just whole. But the impersonal writing style had me feel like I didn't really read it. That's a weird thing to say, but I definitely want to go back to this one. Listen again. The narrator did a great job when I listened to the audiobook, and it was very soothing. I want to experience that again. If you're looking for something that's soothing and hopeful and connected to nature, The Bear was really great. I highly recommend it. And there's plenty to talk about, so if you are also in a book club, this will be a good recommendation. Another book I'm listening to is The Mandibles by Lionel Shriver. This is also kind of end of the world fiction, although it's not actually the end of the world. And it's not anything like The Bear. Let me explain. The conceit is that the United States is going through an economic crisis where the dollar has been completely devalued. One head of cabbage costs over $40. The US government has seized all gold and defaulted on all debts, including treasury bonds. So the economy is in a free fall, which was feeling a little too real while I was listening to it. The book follows a very large cast of characters. There's like 19 or 20 people that you're supposed to care about, and they're all in one family who were waiting for the patriarch to pass away so they could collect the inheritance that they thought was coming to them. But since the economic crisis, now no one has any money and they're all dealing with it in separate ways. What's keeping me from reading this book right now is that it's pretty jargon heavy, that it's explaining the economics a lot, which if you're a very rational person, that might be appealing to you in a book. It's obvious that the author did his work to make this an economic crisis that could actually happen. Another thing that's keeping me from reading it is they're using like a new slang, which obviously language is going to change, but when you're writing in the future and language has changed so much, it's hard to read. It kind of takes away from the story. At least it has been for me. And additionally, the world is in crisis, and I am not really into reading about it fictionally right now. So I'm about like a third of the way into this book, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. I am interested in how all the characters will respond to the crisis, and maybe that's what I'm hoping to get out of it, learning just the different ways that I could respond potentially, or people around me could respond. But otherwise, it's not really drawing me in, so that's the book I'm reading right now, and not sure if I'm going to continue. Speaking of books that I'm totally stalled on, I was reading Rose Under Fire by Elizabeth Wein. Technically, this is the second book in her Codename Verity universe, and Codename Verity was very well received. I know people at the library, my coworkers really enjoyed it, and patrons alike, but the premise really didn't intrigue me, and the premise on the back of this jacket for Rose Under Fire definitely did intrigue me. Rose was a ferry pilot who was denied the ability to fight on the front lines, but was able to participate in the World War II war effort by taxiing planes from bases to get worked on. And I guess I just then forgot about the rest of the summary, because quickly into the first couple chapters, Rose's life is turned completely upside down and she's sent to a concentration camp. And it's here that the story lost me. I wasn't really into it when it was just following Rose's life. No, I was having a hard time connecting with her. It felt a little ditzy, and that she didn't understand the gravity of the war, or it was just more inconsequential. And then it took a hard left turn into a concentration camp where things obviously were very serious, and I felt like the tone didn't match up. So when the narrative shifted like that, I almost completely stalled out on this book. I wasn't ready for that kind of trauma in the book. It took me by surprise, and it didn't match up with the thing I already wasn't enjoying very much. So I ended up returning the audiobook back to the library. So I've definitely stalled on this one. It's still on my currently reading list on Goodreads, but that's a little bit of a lie. I'm not currently reading it, and I don't know if I'm going to go back to it. I can't say if this is a good faith continuation of her Codename Verity series, but considering it was so lauded, where Rose Under Fire didn't get as much attention, maybe reading Codename Verity is a better bet for me. This book does seem like it would appeal to people who enjoy YA with serious topics, historical fiction.
Editing Michelle here to let you know that today's secret code is Historical Fiction 17. Enter code Historical Fiction 17 at goffstownlibrary.com/summer 2020 for your chance to win our grand prize raffles. Remember, the code is case sensitive.
I'm not saying I've read a ton of this genre, but I imagine there are better ones out there. Currently not reading that, even though I say I am. On the other hand, I've got Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough, which is a young adult novel, again, that I'm looking forward to reading, but I did stall a bit. I'm more nervous to read it. So Blood, Water, Paint, it follows a young Italian artist who, by virtue of being a woman, is devalued in her society. She is a real-life Italian painter who is very well known. I'm spacing on her name, which is, I guess, a con of doing this off the cuff. I'll put it below right here. But because this is a historical retelling, I know what's coming. She was sexually assaulted, and then she pressed charges against the man who assaulted her, which was very uncommon during her time period. I can already tell it's going to hit emotionally very hard. It's told in poetry, so there's just this emotional connection that I think I'm not going to be able to avoid her trauma. I do want to read this book. I want to experience the pain, and I think it'll be good for learning empathy and just a good history lesson, but I'm scared it's going to be really cutting. So far, the poetry is beautiful. I really appreciate it. It's telling the story with enough details, but also with elegance, and it's interspersed with chapters of more traditional novels that are her mother's tellings of stories. And if you know anything about the painter, which obviously I don't because I don't even remember her name, but she used a lot of these stories that the novel is offering as what her mother told her in her later painting. I'll put some of the paintings up here as well, because I think even if you don't know her name, as again I do not, the paintings are familiar. So that's Blood, Water, Paint, and I am looking forward to finishing it, but I'm hesitant to keep reading it because I'm scared about what is down the pipeline for me in this story. The only books that I can seem to get through with gusto lately are the Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novels, written written by Gene Luen Yang. There's 6 different graphic story arcs in this series, I suppose, and a couple one-shots, so I've been devouring them. I really loved the television show, both when I was a child and when I watched it again this year, and I didn't want the story to end, and luckily the graphic novels are a continuation of the animated series, so if you loved and enjoyed that, I think you'll also enjoy the graphic novels. They tell different stories of the characters you love, and seem to be setting up The Legend of Korra, which is the animated series that comes after Avatar: The Last Airbender. The character designs are just as lovely as in the animated series, and I think they really capture all the characters' personalities in the graphic adaptation, which is not something that's always the case, so really high marks there. The storylines themselves, they vary. Some of them have been really strong, like the Search story arc, where Zuko finds his mother. Very intriguing and enjoyable, whereas others, they're not as engaging to me, but as much as I think they are relatively weak graphic novels, I still love the characters, and I'm reading them, like I said, with gusto. Not stalled at all, highly recommend, looking forward to the other installments. The only reason that I'm not reading them as fast as I want to is because there weren't as many copies in the library as I would have liked, and I've been having to wait for them to get shipped here. So those are 5 books that I'm in various states of reading right now. What have you been reading? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if this more stream of conscious style video works, trying out different things as we move into our next phase of Book Talk with Michelle after the summer reading program ends. As always, any book I mentioned today is listed in the description below, as well as information about the Goffstown Public Library's downloadable resources. All you need is your library card to start accessing ebooks, e-audiobooks, movies, music, and more. You'll also find information about the Goffstown Public Library's summer experience. That's at goffstownlibrary.com/summer 2020. You can enter the secret code I revealed today at that address and earn tickets towards our grand prize raffle. Like and share this video if you got something out of it, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back next week for another episode of Book Talk with Michelle, but we also have book talks for the other ages, like teens and children's, as well as how-tos and crafts, STEAM activities, story times, and more. You can also connect with the Goffstown Public Library on social media for book recommendations and news alerts all week long. Like I said, I'm Michelle with the Goffstown Public Library, and I'll check you out later. Bye!